Hey guys, hope you're doing well. I just want to show you an incubator that I'm setting up. Now this is not a glamorous incubator, nor is this a DIY video, but I just want to show you some of the customizations that I made, and it might help you with your incubator. So first off, after I removed all the internal components for this cooler, it made it tip forward because of this heavy glass door. So whenever I opened it, the whole thing would tip forward. Now to counter that, I built a base that I made sure protrudes the front by about 3/4 of an inch. So this way, when I screwed the cooler to the base, it made it much more sturdy and it no longer tipped forward. Also, I added 4 wheels to the bottom. This allows me to roll it around if needed. Now let me take out all the egg boxes inside and we can take a look at the internals. Alright, now let's take a look inside. Typically, one of the ways to heat an incubator is with heat tape, which is what I'm using. This is 12-inch heat tape that is adhered to the back and the bottom. I've already gone ahead and soldered wires to the heat tape, and those wires connect to power source as well as a controller. If you're curious how I did that, I will post a link to a past video that shows how to set up the heating elements. The other element you need is airflow. So here I have a PC fan up top, and this is pointed up. I have another PC fan in the middle that I just tied to the shelf with some twist ties. You can use zip ties, strings, whatever. And lastly, I have a personal workstation fan at the very bottom. It's sitting on bottles of water. These bottles of water help to retain heat when you open and close the doors. So one little trick that I have here is I just tied a piece of thread to a binder clip, and what this allows is to quickly visually check to see if the fans are on. So imagine this being full with egg boxes and maybe the lights are off, and you just want to quickly look over to see if the fans are on. So if the thread is moving, then that's an indication that there's airflow. The other thing I have are temperature thermometers. I have a thermometer at the bottom and one at the top. These are held in here by these wooden blocks. It's actually part of my kids' block set that they don't use anymore. They just throw these blocks around and they're like Lego pieces, you know, it sucks to step on them. So why not just utilize them? So the side of the triangle block that is adjacent to the side of the cooler is held by double-sided sticky tape, and the thermometer is held to the block by 3M Velcro. This way I can take the thermometer off if I have to replace the battery. I also have another thermometer here. You can see it is running. And the probe here is not affixed to anywhere. It's actually just free right now. So the reason for this thermometer and probe is I would take this and just randomly place it in one of the egg boxes just to check to see if those eggs are at the right temperature. So I can move that probe around to different egg boxes. And this is just a convenience thing, but there's a light that came with the cooler. I mean, most refrigerators and coolers have the lights. So I didn't actually disassemble those. These are additional wires that I have terminated, but as far as the light, it was affixed to the side. You can see the screws right there, but I just took that off and I taped it to the top for now. There's a little switch here. This is what in the past had operated the light. Let me see, I can get something for you and show you. So there used to be this little piece of plastic that was attached by the screws to these holes, and what that did was when you close the door, it would push this little switch and that would turn off the light. When you open the door, the switch fell down and the light would turn on. Well, I don't really need it to do that. So what I've done is I removed that little tab. This way the light is constantly on, or power is constantly being sent to it. But what I've done is basically connected that light bulb to a socket, and then from there you can get these switches at like Home Depot. So this is the plug for the light, and it's just plugged into this switch, and then from there the switch goes into this extension cord, which has the power. And basically drew with a Sharpie the on-off symbols. So now I can turn it on and turn it off, and I can do that outside without having to open and close the door. Okay, so now let me show you the fan and how I hook that up. Yes, this video is turning out to be a partial DIY. So I do want to show you how to hook up these fans. Now, I've already got 2 in the incubator, and I need 1 more, and I'll show you why later. But for now, I want you to see the fans I'm using. This is the model, and the input is 12 volts DC power. So that means it doesn't take the power that you get from your house outlets. It needs an adapter so you can convert AC to DC power. And this takes 12 volts, like I said. These are meant for computers, so they're not meant to stay on all the time, 24/7. But what I found out is you can reduce the number of volts to it so that it doesn't burn out the motor as quickly. Now, what I got these off of eBay, and it comes with some hardware, which I don't really need. So I just set those aside. So it comes in a pack of 2. I only need 1 more. So I will keep 1 on the side just in case I need it. So it'll serve as backup. So you'll see that it comes with a cord. And 2 of these is going to serve to supply power to the fan. So we'll just set this unit aside. So these are, chargers for your smartphone. This one happens to be for micro USB. We don't actually need this. I'm going to be cutting this off. But what's important to know is this little label here, and you can see the input is 100 to 240 volts. So the regular household voltage is 120. So this is what we use. And then the output is 5 volts, and that's DC power. So remember, the fans take 12 volts, this output's 5, so that means we're going to be powering the fan at about 45% of the speed. Now you can buy other ones with the output at like 6 volts, 9 volts, even 12 volts, but like I said, I wouldn't keep powering the fans at 12 volts because they're not meant to be always on. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to snip off this part because I don't need it. And what that'll show you now is that it has 2 little wires inside. So now I have to expose those 2 wires. Okay, and the way I do that is simply just run a utility knife along the outside, being careful not to cut the wire or the sheathing of those wires inside. You can see I just barely exposed it a tiny bit, and that might just be enough. So you just hold on to it, pull it off. There we go. And now I have to expose the copper. I'll just twist all these copper threads together Just makes it a little bit easier to work with. So we'll set this aside. I'll show you something else. Now, these plugs or adapters or connectors, what I found was one side has male, so you see all the prongs that stick out, and the other side is female, which has all the holes, which allows you to plug something in. And we're going to be using these two holes that are connected to the yellow and black wire. Alright, and what I found was if you take Romex wiring, this is Romex wiring, it comes all in a big spool. I just have like a 2 to 3 piece section of it. This is Romex wiring. It's called 12-2. 12 is the gauge and 2 is the number of wires. The ground doesn't count. The one in the middle doesn't count. It's just the white and the black that counts as 2. So pretty much I just need to expose this. So when you want to cut it, cut in the middle against the ground because the ground doesn't need the sheathing. If you cut the white or you cut the black and you cut that sheathing off, then you can't use it because that'll be exposed wire. So the ground is just wrapped up in paper. We don't need that. What we need are sections of the black and the white. And again, I just want to expose the copper. Both ends, same on the white. Done. So now we have black and a white, and they're exposed on both ends. So at this point we can get ready to solder. Now to solder we have soldering wand or soldering iron, whatever it's called. We have the solder, and we have flux. So put a little bit of flux. You probably can't see it on the camera, but there is a little bit of flux there. And you take the soldering iron. It needs to be hot. You can see I just get a little tiny bit of the solder. Hear a little sizzle. Let me focus this. There it is. So that's all it is. Now it's hot, so don't touch it. And I'll show you again on the other side. A little bit of flux. Tiny bit of solder. And voila. Alright, there, can you see that? They were copper and now they look silver. So that's the solder that's covering the copper. Alright, now we can go ahead and solder these to the wires. I'm going to go red to white and black to black. So again, we need some flux. Put a generous amount on there. Since there's already solder on the ends of these, we don't need to get more solder. We just have to basically melt that onto that so they fuse together. So in order for this white wire to not move around, I'm going to just place my wire cutters on it. Lay the red wire, exposed part of the red wire on top of the copper, and just hold the iron on there until the flux dissolves. That's it. Now we do that for the black. Again, getting some of the flux. And we're done. Alright, so now that they've cooled, we can wrap them in electrical tape. It's important to not allow the exposed wires to contact each other. So first we're going to wrap them individually. Like that. Now if you have heat shrink, that's great, but I don't have it right now, so I'm just going to use electrical tape. Alright, so now that they are completely wrapped up, we can go ahead and wrap them together just to keep them all nice and neat. And this time I'm going to start. You know what? I'll start from this side. And I'm going to add a little bit more. Alright, so now we can plug this in to here. So I'm going to go white to yellow and black to black. So there we are. I'm going to put this here so you can see it. And I'm going to go ahead and plug this in. There we have it. There's the fan. It's running. It's pretty quiet, I think. And it has these holes where you can mount it pretty much to anything, or you can do what I did. Either use zip ties, twist ties, strings, paper clips, double-sided sticky tape. So you can basically affix it anywhere. I'm going to show you where I'm going to put this. Alright, those of you who have been following me for a while might remember this bad boy. This is just a styrofoam box that I turned into an incubator. I made a little bit of modification since then. I used 3M Velcro tape to attach the thermometers to the side of the box. They are not in use right now, so I have the batteries taped to the front. And this one down here is used to monitor the heat that's inside the incubator, and then the one up here, that probe goes inside the egg box, so I can monitor the temperature inside the egg box. Inside, if you guys remember, I used to have this platform that sat directly on top of all the water bottles. Now I removed some of the water bottles, and if you look closely you can see that I used the same egg crate material, and I just made 4 legs, attaching those to the platform with zip ties. So this allows some air to flow underneath rather than having the heat, conduct directly to the egg box. So the fan we made is going to go in here. I'm going to find a way to attach it later, but basically it's going to go somewhere in that location, and the wires can just hang inside. I have a little notch here so that it can sit right there. And that's pretty much it. The other thing I've done is I've changed the egg box so they're a little bit lower profile. I have two different kinds. I have these, two of them. So I think I can fit maybe 4 to 5, maybe even 6 eggs in each of these. And then if I get a large clutch, we'll use this one on top. And the probes are there as they always were. This closes down. And that's it. Oh, I also taped the controller to the top. So I hope you enjoyed this update and some of the tips. Give me a thumbs up if you do, and let me know in the comments if you guys are working on any projects. So as always, thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I'll see you guys next time.